Hello. So, you've learned a lot about the MAOA gene so far today, but what's really scary is if it is not really that valid, then we're getting all types of misinformation about this gene. So, I'm going to read you an article from the Washington Post about the MAOA gene. I wanted to just send you guys a link, but it might be behind a paywall. So I'm going to turn off the scary music and read you guys the article. Okay. So this is from the Washington Post a couple of years ago. The New Mexico Supreme Court ruled last month on an extraordinarily important question. Should a criminal defendant be allowed to argue that a specific gene rendered him unable to control his violent behavior? The court concluded that the answer was no in this instance. It upheld the second-degree murder conviction of Anthony Blas Yepes, who killed a man in 2012. Yepes had sought at trial to introduce evidence that he had what has been called the warrior gene, a version of a gene known as MAOA, which has been linked to violence in some studies. The state Supreme Court, however, missed an important opportunity. It didn't go nearly far enough in batting down scientifically suspect claims that there's a gene for violence. More broadly, it failed to replay the view of contemporary experts that the very idea of a warrior gene was based on obsolete science. Such a ruling might have influenced other courts forced to confront this issue. It would greatly benefit our criminal justice system and justice itself if this outmoded idea about criminality is stamped out. The Dutch geneticist Han Brunner and his colleagues first identified a possible link between violence and a variant of the MAOA gene in an article in Science in 1993. They analyzed the genes of members of a large Dutch family who had sought genetic counseling because the males over decades had demonstrated a proclivity for aggressive outbursts, fights, attempted rape, arson. Brunner's team implicated MAOA, which encodes an enzyme that breaks down brain chemicals that have been associated with the regulation of aggression in animals and humans. A low-acting version of MAOA was associated with violence, the study concluded. Another much-cited study, published in 2002, concluded by looking at a cohort of more than 1,000 people tracked from age 3 to 26 that not everyone with low MAOA was prone to violence. It was only those who had suffered from child maltreatment. Scientists hailed this as a milestone showing a genotype by environment interaction, in which variants of a gene can be affected by aspects of a person's upbringing and experiences. Lawyers soon glommed onto such studies. As this work became more widely known, several criminal defendants, including Yepes, who said he was abused as a child, sought to have experts testify that their actions were better understood as arising from bad genes and environment rather than bad choices. We have identified at least 11 instances in which a defense team sought to introduce the warrior gene evidence, either to argue for a not guilty verdict or to push for conviction for a lesser crime to mitigate punishment. In at least one of these cases, the defendant was convicted on lesser charges than the prosecutor sought, and another person was spared the death penalty. Of course, in jury trials, we can't say for certain the MAOA argument was decisive. We found at least another 50 cases in which defense lawyers have made genetic arguments of all sorts, including claims about serotonin levels, family history, violence, and the like, and courts have seriously grappled with them. The genetic argument can cut both ways. In a death penalty appeals case in Texas involving Amos Hosop Wells III, who killed his pregnant girlfriend and two other people, Wells' lawyers